The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched beyond what human eyes could see. Thousands of beings filled the curved walls that rose like a metal mountain into the darkness above. Ambassador Hyensu Kim stood at the center of it all, his black diplomatic uniform looking small against the massive space around him. The air hummed with alien voices speaking in languages that hurt human ears. Some sounded like breaking glass. Others were deep rumbles that made the floor shake. A few were high whistles that seemed to come from everywhere at once. But Hyensu understood them all through his translation device. They were all saying the same thing. Humanity had to go. High Counselor Zethmar of the Vorthok Empire rose from his throne-like seat. His species looked like walking trees made of dark metal. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the chamber like thunder. "We are here today to decide the fate of the species called humans," Zethmar announced. "They have been members of our galactic community for 57 years. In that time, they have shown us who they truly are." Hyensu kept his face calm, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. He had spent 20 years working for this moment. 20 years trying to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Now it was all falling apart. Dr. Jiwan Park sat in the gallery reserved for human observers. She was Earth's best expert on alien life forms. She had studied every species in the galaxy. She had helped write the first contact protocols. But none of that mattered now. She watched as the beings she had spent her life studying prepared to throw humanity out of their club. "The charges are clear," Zethmar continued. "Excessive aggression and warfare. Violation of established combat protocols. Refusal to follow proper diplomatic procedures. And most concerning of all, dangerous unpredictability in their methods." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light pulsed brighter as it spoke. This was Representative Lumneth of the Ethereal Collective. "The humans fight without honor. They use tricks and deception. They attack when they should retreat. They win battles they should lose. That is the problem," agreed a massive being covered in crystal plates. Counselor Zendar, of the Crystalline Union's voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "We cannot predict what humans will do. This makes them dangerous allies and terrifying enemies." Hyensu stepped forward. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems working to keep hundreds of different species breathing the same air. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation system. "You speak of our methods as if they are crimes, but we have never attacked without cause. We have never broken a treaty. We have never harmed civilians. Every war we have fought has been in defense of ourselves or our allies." "Defense?" The question came from General Voktal of the Hegemony of Six. His species looked like giant beetles with too many arms. "You call the siege of Kepler 442 defense? You were outnumbered 10 to 1. Any civilized species would have surrendered. Instead, you turned a mining station into a fortress and held out for 8 months. When relief finally came, you had somehow destroyed half the attacking fleet." "We improvised," Hyensu said simply. "You improvised?" Zethmar's tone was flat. "You turned mining equipment into weapons. You used the station's atmosphere as a weapon by venting it in controlled bursts to disable enemy ships. You convinced the attackers that you had reinforcements by using sound recordings and fake energy signatures. None of this appears in any military handbook." "Because it worked," Hyensu replied. The chamber erupted in noise. Alien voices rose in anger, fear, and disgust. Some species clicked their appendages together. Others flashed lights in complex patterns. A few simply vibrated at frequencies that made the metal walls ring like bells. Dr. Park leaned forward in her seat. She had been there during the siege of Kepler 442. She had helped design some of those improvised weapons. She had watched humans take a hopeless situation and turn it into victory through pure, stubborn refusal to give up. Now she was watching that same spirit be used as evidence against them. "This is exactly what we mean," said High Counselor Nebrian of the Aquatic Federation. His species lived in water-filled suits that made them look like walking fit. "Humans do not think like civilized beings. They see rules as suggestions. They see impossible situations as challenges. They cannot be controlled or predicted." "You want to know what we think?" Hyensu's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The chamber fell silent again. "We think survival is more important than honor. We think winning is better than losing with style. We think that if someone attacks our friends, we hit back until they stop. And that," said Zethmar, "is why you cannot remain among us." The vote was called. 847 species had sent representatives. Each would cast one vote. Hyensu stood alone in the center as lights began to flash across the chamber. Red meant yes to exile. Blue meant no. Green meant abs. The lights were almost all red. Dr. Park counted them as they appeared. Her heart sank with each new red flash. The Vorthok Empire voted red. The Crystalline Union voted red. The Hegemony of Six voted red. The Ethereal Collective voted red. Even species that humans had helped in the past voted red. When the counting finished, the result was announced in a voice that seemed to come from the chamber itself. "The vote is decided. 846 in favor of exile. 1 opposed. 0 abstentions. Only Earth had voted against its own exile." Zethmar rose again. By the power granted to this council by the Galactic Charter, we hereby declare the species known as humans to be exiled from galactic civilization. All trade agreements are terminated. All communication channels are closed. All protection treaties are void. You have 30 solar cycles to remove all human presence from space beyond your home system of Sol. The chamber began to empty as representatives filed out. Many looked at Hyan-Su with something that might have been pity. Others seemed relieved. A few appeared almost sad. High Counselor Zethmar approached as the crowd thinned. Up close, his tree-like form towered over the human ambassador. I want you to understand, Zethmar said, his voice now quiet enough for only Hyan-Su to hear. This is not hatred, this is fear. Your species does things that should not be possible. You win battles you should lose. You solve problems in ways that break our understanding of how things work. We have studied war for millions of years. We have rules and codes that have kept the galaxy stable for longer than your species has existed. But humans ignore all of that. You make up new rules as you go. That terrifies us. Hyan-Su looked up at the towering alien. Good, he said. Dr. Park joined them as the last of the council members left. She had tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady. 20 years of work, 20 years of trying to build bridges. All wasted. Not wasted, Hyan-Su said. He turned to look at the empty chamber where humanity had just been judged and found wanting. We learned something important today. We learned that we were never really welcome here. We were tolerated as long as we stayed small and quiet and did what we were told. The moment we showed what we could really do, they decided we were too dangerous. So what happens now? Dr. Park asked. Hyan-Su smiled, and for the first time since the vote began, he looked truly dangerous. Now we go home, and we show them what humans do when they have nothing left to lose. The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the last humans left, but in that silence was the seed of something that would change the galaxy forever. They had voted to exile Earth because humans would not follow their rules. They were about to discover that humans had always been writing their own. 6 months had passed since the vote that changed everything. Admiral Taemin Lee stood on the bridge of the massive transport ship New Horizon, watching as another convoy of human vessels prepared to leave the Kepler system. The evacuation was the largest movement of people in human history, but it looked nothing like a retreat. The ships moved in perfect formation. Military escorts flanked civilian transports. Supply vessels carried everything from mining equipment to university libraries. Medical ships transported the wounded and sick. Even the smallest personal craft followed the strict schedule Admiral Lee had created. Status report. Admiral Lee said to his second-in-command. Commander Yunhyo checked her display. Convoy 7 Alpha has cleared the jump point. 38 ships, 12,000 people, all heading for Sol System. Convoy 7 Beta launches. In 4 hours, Admiral Lee nodded. The aliens watching from their monitoring stations saw exactly what they expected to see. Humans were leaving in an orderly fashion. They were following the 30-day deadline. They were being good little exiles and going home quietly. What the aliens could not see was what was not leaving. Deep in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, Commander Soyoung Choi watched the last official human ship disappear into hyperspace. Her stealth frigate Silent Wind was invisible to alien sensors, hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. She was not alone. All ghost stations report ready, her communications officer reported. 17 hidden bases across 12 systems. 200 operatives total. Commander Choi smiled. Galaxy thought humanity was gone, but they had left behind a network of watchers. These were people who had volunteered to stay, to disappear. From all official records, as far as Earth was concerned, they were dead. As far as the galaxy was concerned, they had never existed. Begin Operation Phantom, Commander Choi ordered. Full stealth protocols. Report everything. Interfere with nothing. We are ghosts now. On the research station orbiting Kepler 4 Fort to be by Dr. Wu Jinhan put the finishing touches on a very different kind of disappearing act. The station would officially be destroyed in a mining accident tomorrow. The explosion would be visible from 3 star systems. The debris would convince any investigators that nothing could have survived, but Dr. Han and his team of 50 scientists would be very much alive, hidden in a secret facility built inside a hollow asteroid. They had work to do. Work that could not be done on Earth under the watching eyes of politicians and generals. The exotic matter research continues, Dr. Han told his team as they prepared for their official deaths. The galaxy thinks they understand physics. They think they know what is possible and what is not. We are going to prove them wrong. Back on Earth, President Min Ho-yoon addressed the United Earth Assembly. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every nation and colony. The mood was angry but controlled. Humanity had been humiliated, but they were not broken. Fellow humans, President Yoon began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. 6 months ago, the galaxy told us we were too dangerous to exist among civilized species. They said we could not be trusted to follow their rules. They said we were unpredictable and aggressive. The hall remained silent, but the tension was obvious. Hands were clenched into fists. Jaws were tight with barely controlled anger. They were right, President Yoon continued. We do not follow their rules. We never have. When they tell us something, it is impossible, we do it anyway. When they tell us to surrender, we fight harder. When they tell us to conform, we innovate. Now there were murmurs of agreement. Heads nodded. The anger was becoming something else, something more dangerous. The galaxy has made a grave error, President Yoon said, his voice rising. They have given us the greatest gift they could possibly give us. They have set us free. Free from their treaties that limited our expansion. Free from their laws that restricted our research. Free from their expectations that we should behave like them. The applause started small, but grew until it shook the building. President Yoon raised his hand for silence. They wanted us gone, because we would not play by their rules. Fine, we will play by ours. In the deep levels beneath the assembly hall, Dr. Haijin Kang was already playing by humanity's rules. The Prometheus project had been classified beyond top secret even before the exile. Now it was humanity's best hope for survival. Show me what we have, Dr. Kang said to her research team. The holographic display filled the secure briefing room, with images of technologies that would have terrified the Galactic Council, weapons that bent space itself, ships that could phase through solid matter, energy sources that drew power from the quantum vacuum. The exotic matter research is showing promise, reported Dr. Sung Woo Bei. We may be able to create materials that exist in multiple dimensions at once. The quantum tunneling experiments are exceeding all projections, added Dr. Min Young Cha. We have successfully teleported objects up to 1 kilometer, and the space-time manipulation trials, Dr. Kang asked. Theoretical success, replied Dr. Jun Ho. We believe we can create localized alterations in the flow of time itself. Dr. Kang smiled. The galaxy thought they understood the limits of science. They had built their civilization on those limits. They had created rules based on what they believed was possible. But humanity had never been good at accepting limits. Accelerate all research, Dr. Kang ordered. We have work to do. Above them, in the public areas of the government complex, a very different kind of preparation was taking place. General Haewon Kim briefed the military commanders on the new reality. We are no longer bound by the Galactic Warfare Convention, General Kim explained. We are no longer limited by alien ideas of honor and fair play. We are no longer required to fight the way they expect us to fight. The room was filled with humanity's best military minds. They had spent decades learning to fight within the galaxy's rules. Now those rules were gone. What does that mean for our doctrine? Asked Fleet Admiral Borum Kim. It means we stop fighting like them and start fighting like us, General Kim replied. It means we use every advantage we have. It means we innovate, we adapt, we overcome. It means we remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place. Sun Luna. Massive construction projects were reshaping the moon's surface. Orbital platforms appeared around Earth like mechanical flowers blooming in space. The industrial capacity of humanity was being redirected toward a single goal, survival. But it was more than survival. In the hidden facilities, in the secret research stations, in the minds of humanity's greatest thinkers, something new was being born. The galaxy had tried to limit humanity by forcing them to follow alien rules. Now those limits were gone, Commander. So Young Choi watched from her hidden base as alien ships moved freely through what had once been human space. They thought they had won. They thought humanity was safely contained in the Sol system, no longer a threat to their ordered galaxy. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons. It had been their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The exodus was complete. Humanity was home. And now the real work could begin. Dr. Wu Jinhan looked up from his exotic matter experiments and smiled. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because humans would not follow the rules. Soon, the galaxy would discover that humans had been busy writing new ones. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared from galactic space. The silence where human voices once spoke was filled with alien celebration. Trade routes that had carefully avoided human territory now carried cargo ships from dozens of species. Space stations that had once been tense meeting points between humans and aliens became peaceful trading posts. The galaxy had grown comfortable without humans. Captain Dong Hyen Park adjusted the sensors on his stealth frigate Shadow Walker as it drifted through the void nebula. The ship was invisible to all known detection methods, hidden in the gas and dust of the stellar nursery. For 18 months, he had watched and listened to everything happening in this sector of space. What he saw disturbed him greatly. Communication intercept from the Hegemony 4th Fleet, reported Lieutenant Su Jinyu from her station. They were discussing final preparations for Operation Clean Sweep. Captain Park frowned. Operation Clean Sweep had been mentioned in encrypted messages for 6 months now. The Hegemony claimed it was a peacekeeping mission, but their fleet movements told a different story. Analysis, Captain Park asked. 7 battle groups, 400 ships total. Destination appears to be the Sol system. Lieutenant Yu replied. Captain Park felt ice in his stomach. The Hegemony was planning to attack Earth itself. Get me a secure channel to command, he ordered. On the hidden side of Luna, Dr. Shin stared at readings that should have been impossible. The exotic matter she had created was behaving in ways that violated every law of physics known to galactic science. It existed in 3 dimensions, while somehow also existing in 7 others at the same time. Temperature readings are impossible, reported her assistant, Dr. Jong-Sik Ro. The matter is simultaneously at absolute 0 and several million degrees. Because temperature is just another rule we have learned to break. Dr. Shin replied calmly. Show me the gravitational tests. The holographic display showed a small piece of exotic matter floating in a containment field. Around it, space itself was twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Gravity flowed upward in some places and sideways in others. We have created matter that exists outside normal space-time, Dr. Shin explained to her team. It follows our commands rather than natural law. This is not just a new material. This is a new way of understanding reality itself. Dr. Kunho Seo raised his hand. What can we do with it? Dr. Shin smiled. Anything we want. Fleet Admiral Borum Kim stood in the command center deep beneath the Himalayas, reviewing reports from their hidden observers throughout the galaxy. The news was not good. 3 major powers were moving fleets. 7 smaller species had formed a new military alliance. All of them seemed to be looking toward Sol System with hungry eyes. They think we are defenseless, Admiral Kim said to her staff. They believe exile has made us weak. General Jae Hano nodded grimly. The Vorthok Empire has moved 2 fleets to within 5 light-years of our border. The Crystalline Union is building new battle stations. Even the Aquatic Federation is expanding. They're military. They are not just preparing for war, added Intelligence Director Mung-Hoon Beek. They are preparing for conquest. They want to divide Earth between them. Admiral Kim turned to look at the massive tactical display that showed the positions of every known alien fleet. Red markers surrounded the Sol System like a closing fist. Time to show them what human silence really means, she decided. On research. Station Omega-7, hidden in an asteroid field at the edge of known space. Dr. Hyo-Sung Lee made a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying the quantum structure of space itself when she noticed something strange. The vacuum is not empty, she announced to her research team. It is full of energy patterns that we can access and manipulate. Dr. Young-hee Choi looked at the readings with amazement. You mean we can draw unlimited power from empty space? Not just power, Dr. Lee replied. We can rewrite the basic rules that govern how matter and energy behave. We can make space itself into a tool. The implications were staggering. If space could be manipulated like any other material, then ships could move through dimensions that aliens did not even know existed. Weapons could strike targets by bending reality around them. Defense systems could make attacks simply cease to exist. Commander Soyoung Choi received the encrypted message while her ghost fleet patrolled the outer edges of the Kepler system. The message was short but clear. Phase 2 authorized. Prepare for active measures. For 2 years, her people had been shadows. They had watched and listened but never acted. They had been invisible observers of a galaxy that believed humans were gone. Now that was about to change. All ghost stations, this is Phantom Base. She transmitted on a channel that officially did not exist. We are going active. Repeat, we are going active. Across 12 star systems, human operatives who had been dead to the galaxy for 2 years began to move. They had positions in alien governments, alien military forces, alien research facilities. They had access to communication networks, defense systems, and strategic databases. The galaxy was about to discover that humans had never really left. High Counselor Zethmar of the Vorthok Empire stood in his command chamber, reviewing the final plans for the partition of Sol System. The hegemony would take the inner planets, the Crystalline Union would claim the outer worlds, the Vorthok Empire would take Earth itself. The humans will surrender immediately, predicted General Bakhtul. They have no allies, no weapons that can threaten our fleets, and no way to call for help. This will be the shortest war in galactic history. What of their reputation for unpredictability? Asked Admiral Keshnor. Propaganda Zethmar dismissed. They won a few battles through luck and desperation. Against the combined might of civilized species, they are helpless. The communication system chimed with an incoming message. The technician who received it went pale as he read the contents. Sir, the technician said in a shaking voice, we are receiving a transmission from Sol System. It is addressed to all fleet commanders. Impossible, Zethmar said. We have blocked all communication to and from human space. The signal is coming through our own communication network, sir. It appears to be broadcasting from inside our command systems. The message appeared on every screen in the command chamber. It was simple and direct. Attention, former members of the Galactic Council. This is Fleet Admiral Borum Kim of the Terran Defense Force. Your fleets are ordered to withdraw beyond the 50 light-year exclusion zone immediately. You have 24 hours to comply. This is your only warning. The command chamber fell silent. Then Zethmar began to laugh. They think they can threaten us from their isolated system. They think empty words will stop our fleets. He turned to his communications officer. Send a reply. Tell them that in 72 hours, Earth will be under new management. but the laughter died in his throat when he saw what was happening. On the tactical display, one by one, ships throughout his fleet were reporting system failures. Navigation computers were showing impossible readings. Weapons systems were powering down without authorization. Communication arrays were broadcasting human music instead of military orders. What is happening? Zethmar demanded. The answer came from every speaker in the chamber at once, in a voice that was definitely human and definitely amused. You wanted us to disappear, so we became invisible. You wanted us to be silent, so we learned to speak through your own systems. You wanted us gone, so we became ghosts in your machines. Captain Donghyun Park smiled as he watched the alien fleets struggle with systems that no longer obeyed their commands. The galaxy had enjoyed 2 years of silence from humanity. Now they were about to discover what humans had been doing in that silence. The first sign that humanity had returned was not their ships. It was not their weapons. It was the complete collapse of the Galactic communication network at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Lieutenant Sung-Ho Jang sat in a secure bunker beneath the surface of Mars, his fingers dancing across holographic keyboards that controlled computer systems across half the galaxy. For 3 years, his cyber warfare unit had been planting invisible programs in every major network in known space. Tonight, all of those programs activated at once. Network infiltration complete, reported Specialist Hyojin Nam. We have control of communication systems in 437 star systems. Banking networks compromised, added Corporal Sang-Woo Kim. All major financial institutions are now running our code. Military networks are ours, confirmed Sergeant Dayun Choi. Every fleet in the galaxy is now deaf, blind, and confused. Lieutenant Jang smiled as reports flooded in from his team. The galaxy had spent 2 years believing that humans were trapped in their home system. They had no idea that human programmers had been rewriting the software that ran their entire civilization. Phase 1 complete, Jang announced. The galaxy can no longer talk to itself. Begin Phase 2, in the hegemony home system. Grand Admiral Korthven watched in growing horror as his invincible fleet turned into floating scrap metal. His flagship, the mighty dreadnought, Eternal Victory, was broadcasting children's songs from Earth instead of tactical communications. Status report, he demanded. Navigation systems are showing that we are somehow inside a star, reported his operations officer. Weapons systems believe they are underwater. Life support thinks we are on a planet with an atmosphere of pure sugar. This is impossible, Admiral Korthven said. Yes, sir, his officer agreed. But it is happening anyway. The Admiral's personal communication device chimed with an incoming message. The sender was listed as a friend, but the voice that spoke was unmistakably human. Hello, Admiral. This is Captain Jae-Soon Lim of the Terran Contact Fleet. To talk. Admiral Korthven looked around his bridge. Every screen was now showing peaceful images of Earth, forests, and oceans. Cities full of humans going about their daily lives. Children playing in parks. Where are you? The Admiral asked. Look outside, Captain Lim replied. Admiral Korthven turned to the main view screen. Empty space stared back at him. Then, as if someone was slowly turning up the brightness on a light, a ship began to appear. It was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The hull seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed and shifted like a living thing. Energy patterns danced across its surface in colors that did not exist in normal space. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. What are you, Admiral? Korthven whispered. We are what you made us, Captain Lim replied. We are humans, who no longer care about your rules. More ships began to appear throughout the hegemony fleet. They materialized out of nothing like ghosts becoming solid. Some were small and fast, darting between the disabled alien vessels like fish swimming through a reef. Others were massive, their size defying the physics of how large ships could be built. How is this possible, Admiral? Korthven asked. You exiled us for not following your laws of warfare, Captain Lim explained. So we stopped following your laws of physics too. In the Vorthok Empire's main fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Admiral Daram Choi commanded the human task force that had appeared in their home system without warning. Her flagship, the Prometheus Rising, hung in space above the Vorthok capital world like a dark angel. The ship was impossibly large. It stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, but somehow it cast no shadow. Light seemed to bend around it in ways that made observers feel dizzy. When Admiral Choi spoke, her voice came from every communication device in the system at once. Emperor Vashtok, she said, we meet again. The Vorthok Emperor had been in an emergency session with his war council when the humans appeared. Now, he stood on his palace balcony, looking up at the alien ship that hung over his world like a promise of destruction. This is impossible, he said into his communication device. Our sensors show nothing. Our defense grid reports no intrusion. How are you here? We learned new ways of traveling, Admiral Choi replied. Space is much larger than you thought, and much smaller too. Around the capital world, more human ships became visible. They appeared inside the orbital defense stations, their hulls somehow occupying the same space as the alien structures without damaging them. They materialized in the middle of military formations, causing alien ships to scatter in panic. What do you want? Emperor Vashtok demanded. We want to talk, Admiral Choi said. But first, we want you to understand something. You thought exile meant we would grow weak. You thought isolation would make us helpless. You were wrong. The Emperor watched as one of the human ships demonstrated its capabilities. The vessel simply faded away, becoming transparent. Then it reappeared on the other side of his planet, having somehow traveled through solid matter. This violates every law of physics, the Emperor said. Yes, Admiral Choi agreed. We have learned to violate a lot of things. On Earth, President Subanoo stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the government complex. Watching as reports came in from across the galaxy, every major military fleet was disabled. Every communication network was under human control. Every defense system was showing impossible readings. Status report. She requested all primary targets are neutralized. Reported Defense Minister Chan Hee on the Hegemony fleet is completely disabled. The Vorthok forces are in full retreat. The Crystalline Union has requested immediate negotiations. And the secondary targets. The Aquatic Federation has already withdrawn their forces. The Ethereal Collective is asking for a formal apology. 17 minor species have requested permission to visit Earth. President No smiled. The galaxy had spent 2 years thinking that humans were safely contained. They had made plans to divide Earth between them like a piece of fruit. Now they were discovering what humans could accomplish when they stopped pretending to follow alien rules. Open a channel to all galactic governments, she ordered. The transmission reached every inhabited world in known space simultaneously. It bypassed all security systems and appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device. The message was simple and direct. Attention former members of the Galactic Council. This is President Subanoo of the United Earth Republic. You voted to exile us because you believed we were too dangerous for your civilization. You were correct. We were dangerous to your limitations, your assumptions, and your belief that progress had ended. In the Crystalline Union capital, High Counselor Zendar watched the human president with growing fear. The woman looked perfectly ordinary, but her words carried the weight of impossible power. For 2 years, you believed we were gone. President No continued. In reality, we have been everywhere. Your communication networks run on our code. Your defense systems answer to our commands. Your ships fly through space. We control. You never lost sight of us. You never had sight of us to begin with. Across the galaxy, alien leaders were receiving the same terrible message. The humans had not been hiding from them. They had been invisible among them, learning their secrets, studying their weaknesses, preparing for this moment. We have returned not as exiles seeking readmission, President No said. We have returned as teachers offering education. You can learn to transcend your limitations, or you can remain trapped by them. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Then, slowly, the implications began to sink in. Humanity had not just survived their exile, they had used it to evolve beyond recognition. In the void between stars, Captain Dong Hyen Park watched alien fleets struggling with systems that no longer obeyed the laws of physics. His stealth ship had become something more than stealth. It existed in spaces that alien sensors could not detect, because those spaces had not existed until humans learned to create them. Status of all alien fleets? He asked his crew. Completely neutralized. Lieutenant Sujin, you reported they cannot move, communicate, or fight. They are effectively flying museums. Captain Park nodded. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because humans refused to follow their rules. Now the galaxy was learning that humans had been busy writing new ones, and these new rules were about to change everything. Emperor Vashtok of the Vorthok Empire stared at the impossible ship hanging above his capital world. For 3 days, it had remained there without moving, without threatening, without doing anything except existing in ways that hurt his mind to contemplate. Now, he had received a simple message. We need to talk. The human who appeared in his throne room did so without using any door, transporter, or known method of travel. One moment the chamber was empty, except for the Emperor and his guards. The next moment, Chancellor Subin No of Earth stood before his throne, as if she had always been there. The guards raised their weapons, but the Emperor held up a hand to stop them. He had learned enough about human capabilities in the past 3 days to know that weapons would be useless. How did you get here? He asked. I walked. Chancellor No replied simply. Distance is just another rule we have learned to rewrite. Emperor Vashtok gestured to a chair that materialized beside his throne. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Chancellor No sat gracefully, looking completely at ease, despite being surrounded by alien technology and hostile guards. You wanted to know how we disabled your fleets without firing a shot? The answer is simple. We convinced your weapons that they did not exist. That is impossible, the Emperor said. 3 years ago, yes. Chancellor No agreed. Today, it is just another tool in our arsenal. Your weapon systems are based on the assumption that energy behaves in predictable ways. We taught energy to behave differently. The Emperor leaned forward, his tree-like features showing genuine curiosity. How? By asking it nicely, Chancellor No said with a smile that was not entirely human. Reality is much more cooperative than your scientists believed. It just needed better instructions. On the research vessel, Infinite Possibility, Dr. Young Subei was giving those better instructions to a group of stunned alien scientists. Representatives from 12 species had been invited to observe humanity's new understanding of physics. What they were seeing challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. The problem with your science, Dr. Bay explained to his audience, is that you assumed the laws of physics were unchangeable. You built your entire civilization on the belief that certain things were impossible. He gestured to a simple device on the table before them. It looked like a metal cube, no larger than a human fist. This device creates gravitational fields that flow in any direction we choose. Your physics says gravity can only pull toward mass. Our physics says gravity is just another form of energy that can be directed like light. Dr. Ventar of the Crystalline Union raised what might have been a hand, but the mathematical proofs clearly show that such manipulation is impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of a star. Only if you accept your mathematics as complete, Dr. Bay replied. He touched a control on the device. The cube rose into the air, then began to orbit around the room, in a complex pattern that defied every law of motion known to galactic science. We discovered that mathematics is a language for describing reality, not defining it. When we learned to speak to reality directly, we found it was willing to negotiate. Professor Kethnal of the Aquatic Federation bubbled in distress. You speak as if the universe is alive, isn't it? Dr. Bay asked. Your mistake was assuming consciousness was rare. We found that consciousness exists at every level of reality, from quantum particles to galactic structures. Once we learned to communicate with those forms of consciousness, they became our allies rather than our obstacles. On the planet Zarian Prime, Director Hyojin-Ru was demonstrating the full scope of humanity's transformation to the Galactic Council's emergency session. The beings who had voted to exile Earth 2 years ago now sat in stunned silence as she revealed technology that made their greatest achievements look like stone tools. This is a standard human exploration vessel, Director Ru said, gesturing to the holographic display. The ship shown was sleek and organic, seeming to pulse with its own internal life. It can travel between dimensions, exist in multiple locations, simultaneously, and communicate with any form of matter or energy. High Counselor Zethmar of the Vorthok Empire spoke carefully. What you describe violates causality itself. Effects cannot precede causes. Objects cannot exist in multiple places at once. According to your understanding of causality, Director Ru agreed, but causality is just another rule that can be rewritten with the proper approach. Time is not a river flowing in one direction. It is an ocean that can be navigated in any direction by those who know how to swim. She touched a control, and the holographic ship suddenly appeared in the council chamber itself. Solid and real, despite being a projection moments before. This ship has been in your chamber for the past hour, existing 1 second in the future. From your perspective, now that second has arrived, so you can see it. The assembled aliens drew back in fear as the ship's hull became transparent, revealing a human crew working calmly at stations that seemed to be made of crystallized light. Your science was built on observation and measurement, Director Root continued. Our science is built on conversation and cooperation. We do not force the universe to obey us. We ask it to dance with us. Representative Lumineth of the Ethereal Collective pulsed with confused colors. How is such cooperation possible? By recognizing that consciousness is not limited to biological forms, Director Ru explained. Every particle has awareness. Every force has intention. Every law of physics has preferences. Once we learned to respect those preferences and work with them instead of against them, the universe became our partner rather than our prison. In the depths of space, Captain Jae-Sung Lim commanded the first joint human-alien exploration mission. In galactic history, 3 species had volunteered to learn humanity's new methods of science and exploration. The results were extraordinary. Navigation report. Captain Lim requested. We are currently in 7 different star systems simultaneously, reported Lieutenant Min Soo Jung. The vegan representative is learning to communicate with solar winds. The Andromedan observer has successfully negotiated with a black hole to reduce its gravitational pull. Dr. Yojin Sco, the mission's chief scientist, looked up from her instruments with excitement. Captain, the Centaurian team member has just achieved consciousness merge with a gas giant. She reports that the planet wants to become a star and is asking for our help. Captain Lim smiled. The galaxy had exiled humanity for being unpredictable and dangerous. Now that same unpredictability was opening new frontiers that none of them had imagined possible. Tell the planet we would be honored to assist, he said, and ask it if it has any friends who might want to join our exploration fleet. Back on Earth, President Sojin Kwan signed the document that would reshape galactic civilization. The new galactic charter was not a treaty between equals. It was an invitation to transcendence offered by those who had already transcended. The old rules are dead, she announced to the assembled representatives of 800 species. The old limitations no longer apply. The old assumptions about what is possible have been proven wrong. We offer you the chance to learn new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of dancing with reality itself. Some species had embraced the opportunity eagerly. The Epsilon Collective had already begun experimenting with consciousness transfer between organic and synthetic forms. The Meridian Alliance was learning to grow planets instead of terraforming them, but others resisted. The hegemony of six refused to acknowledge that their physics could be wrong. The Orthodox Union declared human science to be dangerous heresy. The Purist Coalition demanded a return to traditional methods. Those who choose growth will find themselves protected by power beyond imagination, President Quan continued. Those who choose stagnation will find themselves alone with their limitations. Emperor Vashtok, who had flown to Earth personally for the signing, approached the podium. His ancient species had built their empire on the belief that some things never changed. Now he was learning that everything could change. You have shown us wonders that challenge our most basic beliefs, he said. You have demonstrated powers that make our greatest weapons seem like toys. But I must ask, what do you want from us? President Quan smiled with genuine warmth. Nothing you are not willing to give. We want to share what we have learned with those who wish to learn. We want to explore possibilities that none of us could reach alone. We want to build a galaxy where the only limitation is imagination itself. The Emperor nodded slowly. And if we refuse, then you remain exactly as you are, President Quan replied. Free to follow your old rules and your old ways for as long as you choose. But the universe is much larger than you thought, and it is full of beings who have chosen to grow beyond their limitations. As the ceremony ended and the representatives prepared to return to their worlds, Chancellor Subin watched from the observation deck as impossible human ships prepared to escort the alien vessels home. Some of those ships existed in normal space. Others flickered between dimensions. A few seemed to be made of crystallized time itself. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because humans would not follow the rules. Now, 800 species were lining up to learn humanity's new ones. The transformation had only just begun. 5 years had passed since the vote that changed everything. The Galactic Council chambers looked the same, but everything else had transformed beyond recognition. Ambassador Kingman Song stood where Hyun-Soo Kim had once been humiliated, but now the chamber was filled with a silence born of awe rather than judgment. The beings who had voted to exile Earth now sat as students rather than judges. Some had embraced humanity's new understanding of reality with enthusiasm. Others had resisted until the evidence became impossible to ignore. A few had simply vanished into the expanding frontiers of possibility that humans had opened. 5 years ago, you voted to exile us, Ambassador Song announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. You declared us too dangerous for civilized space. You are absolutely correct. The assembled representatives shifted uncomfortably. Many of the faces were different from those who had cast the original vote. Some species had replaced their leaders with individuals more willing to adapt. Others had undergone transformations, so complete that they were barely recognizable as their former selves. We were dangerous to your limitations, Ambassador Song continued. We were dangerous to your assumption that progress had ended. We were dangerous to your belief that certain things would always be impossible. Today, I stand before you not to ask for readmission to your old order, but to offer you membership in something new. High Counselor Zethmar, one of the few original voters still in his position, rose slowly. His tree-like form had changed over the years. Where once he had been dark metal, now he seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. What have you done to us? He asked, his voice carrying confusion and wonder in equal measure. Professor Tae-young Kim materialized beside Ambassador Song without apparent method of arrival. She had become humanity's chief teacher, traveling throughout the galaxy to share the new sciences with willing students. We have done nothing to you, Professor Kim replied gently. We have simply shown you what you could become. The changes you see in yourself are the result of your own choices to grow beyond your former limitations. In the gallery, Dr. Ju-won Park watched the proceedings with emotions too complex to name. She had spent decades studying alien life forms, trying to understand how different species could coexist. Now she was watching those same species transform into something entirely new. The Epsilon Collective's representative, who now existed as a hybrid of organic consciousness and crystalline structure, spoke in harmonies that resonated through dimensions beyond the physical. Our people have learned to transfer consciousness between matter states. We can exist as gas, liquid, solid, or pure energy as the situation requires. How is this possible? Because you stopped believing it was impossible, Professor Kim replied. Your minds created the barriers that limited you. When you learned to think beyond those barriers, reality followed your lead. Ambassador Song gestured to the holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed a map of known space, but the map was alive with movement and change. Stars that had been static for millions of years now pulsed with directed energy. Planets moved in spirals that defied orbital mechanics. Entire solar systems rotated like cosmic flowers blooming in fast motion. The galaxy you knew no longer exists, Ambassador Song said. Space itself has become a collaborative partner, rather than an empty stage. Matter has learned to think. Energy has developed preferences. Time has become negotiable rather than absolute. Representative Colzon of the Meridian Alliance, whose species now resembled living gardens more than their original insectoid forms, rustled with excitement. Our worlds grow themselves now. We plant the seed of intention, and reality shapes itself to match our vision. Our children are born already adapted to environments that do not yet exist but will exist when they are needed. Fleet Admiral Chanwu Park entered the chamber leading a procession of beings that represented the new order. Some were recognizably from known species, but changed. Others were entirely new forms of life that had emerged from the intersection of consciousness and possibility. The Terran Protectorate now encompasses 473 star systems, Admiral Park announced. But we are not conquerors, we are gardeners, helping consciousness flourish wherever we find it willing to grow. A delegation from the Andromedon Spiral approached the podium. They had traveled from another galaxy entirely, drawn by reports of the changes occurring in the Milky Way. Their leader, an entity of pure crystallized starlight, spoke in frequencies that made the chamber walls sing. "We have observed your transformation from a distance of 2 million light-years," the entity said. "The ripples of change you have created are spreading beyond your galaxy. Other civilizations are beginning to question their own limitations. How far will this transformation spread?" President Sojin Kwan appeared in the chamber through a method that made several representatives gasp. She had stepped through what appeared to be a doorway made of folded space, emerging from her office on Earth despite being hundreds of light-years away. "As far as consciousness chooses to grow," President Kwan replied, "we have learned that the universe is infinite, not just in size, but in possibility. Every choice to transcend limitation creates new realities for others to explore." But not all the news was of transformation and growth. The Orthodox Union had withdrawn from galactic society entirely, creating a barrier around their territory that rejected all contact with the changed galaxy. The Purist Coalition had declared war on what they called the infection of impossibility, and had been systematically erasing all evidence of humanity's new sciences from their worlds. "What of those who refuse to change?" asked Councillor Meredek of the Neutral Zones. "What of those who see your gifts as curses?" Ambassador Song's expression became sad but resolute. "They remain free to choose stagnation over growth. We do not force transformation on anyone, but neither can we protect them from the consequences of their choices." The display showed regions of space that seemed darker than the rest. These were the territories of species that had rejected the new possibilities. In contrast to the vibrant, living cosmos around them, these areas appeared static and lifeless. "The galaxy has become divided," admitted Emperor Vostok, who had traveled to attend the session in person. "Those who embrace change flourish beyond imagination. Those who resist it find themselves increasingly isolated." "It has always been divided," Professor Kim observed. "The difference is that now the division is visible. Those who were always willing to grow have found ways to do so. Those who were always afraid of change have found ways to hide from it." Dr. Youngsu Bae, who had spent the years since first contact teaching alien scientists to communicate with reality itself, approached the podium carrying what appeared to be a small star contained in a field of crystallized time. "This is a gift," he announced. "A newborn star that chose to be born small so it could travel with us. It wants to learn about other forms of consciousness. It has offered to teach willing students how to think on cosmic scales." Several representatives recoiled from the impossible sight, but others leaned forward with fascination. The division was clear. Some beings saw wonder, while others saw only threat. "The choice has always been the same," Ambassador Song said as the session began to wind down. "Grow or remain static. Learn or stay ignorant. Dance with possibility or cling to certainty. The only difference is that now the consequences of each choice are immediate and visible." As the representatives began to file out, heading back to worlds that were either flowering with new possibilities or retreating into rigid isolation, Ambassador Song remained at the podium. She was joined by the other humans who had spoken, their forms shifting slightly as they existed, simultaneously in the chamber and in their various other locations across space and time. "Status report," she requested. 203 species have fully embraced the new paradigms," reported Admiral Park. 46 are in transition. 31 have chosen complete isolation. The remainder are still deciding, and beyond our galaxy. The changes are spreading. Confirmed. Professor Kim. 17 other galaxies have sent exploratory missions. 3 have already begun implementing similar transformations among their own species. Ambassador Song nodded with satisfaction. The vote had been 846 to 1. Humanity had stood alone, judged too dangerous for civilized space. Now they were the teachers of a new form of civilization that spanned multiple galaxies. "The irony is perfect," she mused. "They exiled us for refusing to follow their rules. Now most of them are begging us to teach them ours." Dr. Park approached from the gallery, her aged face bright with wonder. "I have spent my entire career studying how different species can coexist. Now I am watching them become something entirely new. Some days I can barely recognize the beings I once knew. Is that good or bad? Ambassador Song asked. It is necessary, Dr. Park replied. A caterpillar cannot remain a caterpillar and also become a butterfly. Growth requires transformation, and transformation requires the courage to become something you have never been before. As the great chamber emptied, and the humans prepared to return to their various homes across space and time, Ambassador Song took one last look at the place where humanity had once been judged and found wanting. The vote had been unanimous against them. Now the galaxy was discovering that humanity had been right all along. Rules were made to be rewritten. Limitations existed to be transcended. Impossibility was just another word for not yet discovered. The galaxy had exiled Earth because humans would not follow the established order. Now there was a new order, and it was written in languages that reality itself understood. The transformation was complete. The revolution had become evolution, and somewhere in the space between dimensions, the universe itself was learning to dream new dreams. The vote was still 846 to 1, but now it was 846 species asking humanity to teach them how to cast votes that could change the nature of existence itself.